for me?
Yeah, kind of.
All right.
You need to stop talking.
All right. Well, this session is writing for the web. I called it the dirty little secrets that make your web pages work for you. Now, I have to tell you, I've never talked about these secrets publicly before, and that's because I've never talked publicly before. So, if I stumble a little bit, you're just going to have to forgive me. Anyway, who is Henry? That's me. I was raised on the other side of the state in Reading, came out here for college, and I came out here as an information science major to the University of Pittsburgh, and I found out that was really boring for me. So after a semester, I switched over to fiction writing because I like to make stuff up and tell people stories. Now, there aren't a lot of companies that hire fiction writers right out of college, so my first job was actually for United Airlines as a flight attendant, flying around the world. You know, you can picture the young man's quest for romance and adventure while penning the great American novel, which of course didn't really work out, and I was living in the DC area, and rent prices are crazy down there. So I was looking for a way to supplement my income. I said, hey, I can write, right? You know, people are selling articles, making millions of dollars on the internet. I'll get some spare time income doing that. But I learned two things very quickly. Two things I learned. Almost all of my competition was exactly like me. They were frustrated in another job and wannabe novelists that were going to quit the second they got their great American novel published and hit the bestseller list. The second thing I learned was the law of supply and demand for idealistic writers who write well but don't know squat about business and the internet. When you're online, most people that buy writing buy it for profit. They have a website that needs to make money or accomplish something. And if you just write fiction, you don't really know anything. If that's your background, you don't know anything about business or what makes websites work. Writing for the web is very different. And that's actually the parts that I'm going to talk about today aren't the articles and the blog posts. What we're going to talk about today is the thing that separates, the parts of the website that you have to write that separate web writing from just regular article writing or newspaper writing. If you want some resources, places to learn just basic writing, these are two pretty good sites. I thought I'd throw them in there since if you need more basic help, there's some good lessons on there. Today I'm going to go over three parts that are the important pieces of text that you're going to want to learn, or that I'll be teaching you, hopefully. First is your website's tagline. Then we'll be talking about headlines and subheads. Then buttons and text link, or link text. Before I start though, I want to tell you just a little story about what makes these little pieces of information so important. There was a website that sold curtains or window blinds or something like that. And in the top right corner, I wish I had a screenshot of it, but he's taken it down. There was a little goofy cartoon character that had a message that he would change monthly or seasonally, whatever it was. And one day he noticed that his sales had dropped off by like 23%, I think was the number. And so he's looking around, he can't figure out what it is, but it's March and he still has a Valentine's Day message, you know, buy blinds for your sweetheart or something like that. So he changes that little text to march on into March Madness, since it was the tournament season. And his sales instantly shot back up to right where they were. And see, he contacted a couple of customers that were repeat customers and said, you know, why didn't you buy during that time? They're like, oh, we didn't think you were there. It's those little pieces of text make an instant impression on people visiting your website. And that's why they're so important. People make unconscious decisions very quickly when they land on a website. They're asking, is this where I want to be? If they got there off of a Twitter link or a Google search, you know, does this answer my question? Is this what's promised? And they're looking for all these clues as to whether they're in the right space or not, and it's the little things that make the difference. So first, we'll talk about taglines. We all know this tagline. It's one of the more famous ones. Just Do It, Nike. It worked for Nike because it was part of a multi-million-dollar television advertising campaign. We know what this slogan means because we saw the minute-long commercial with the godlike athletes running around in their super shoes. With them, at the end it would say, Nike, just do it. And you got the impression that, okay, after all that, I understand that it's for, just look inside yourself and find the strength. But if you were on a website about shoes, and it was like dansshoes.com, and they said just do it, what does that mean? If you land there, dansshoes.com, just do it. Just do what? Buy your shoes? Don't tell me what to do, I'm out of here. It's kind of arbitrary.
Speaking of that shot.
So, your tagline has to accomplish two things very quickly. Well, first, I say people land there on a website very quickly and form an impression. You have under 5 seconds typically. Person will read the title of your site and your tagline, and if your tagline gets them, they might read a little bit more. So the tagline has to accomplish two things. It has to let them know what the site is about. If it's a shoe store, you want a tagline that's relevant to shoes. And you have to let them know how it helps them. There has to be some benefit in it for them. And you have to do this very quickly. For instance, I told you about copyblogger.com. Their tagline is copywriting tips for online marketing success. Right there, you know what the site's about, it's copywriting tips, and what it does for you. It helps you succeed in online marketing. It's a very clear tagline, but it's not clever. Clever is death on the internet. People don't want to sit there and figure out your cutesy slogan. They're not going to be confused. And a lot of people think, people are stupid online. I don't want stupid people visiting my website, so I'll have this clever one and the smart people will figure it out. Well, it's not that people are stupid. They're just distracted. There's so many sites. There's billions of websites online. And if yours isn't answering the question, what am I doing here? Is this what I want it to be? Very quickly, they're out of there. They're going to go to the other million sites that are almost like yours. The only way that you can separate yourself is with words. And a tagline is part of that. Now we'll talk about how to find a benefit, because a lot of people mess this up and they'll talk about a feature instead of a benefit. First, ask what the site does. If you're, let's see if I have any good examples here. No, probably not. Anyway, ask what the site does. If you're selling shoes, are you, talking about 20 rants of your daily life? Is it, reasons why we should fund the Cancer Society? Whatever your site's about, you have to figure that out first. Then ask, what does that mean for your visitors? In their general life, what is it? What problem does it solve? What purpose? What are you offering? Anyway, you have to find the deeper benefit. I had a good example in here, and I can't find it. I hate thinking on my sheet here.
You want one?
What?
You want an example?
Sure, you have an example?
House set for an ad for a house or an apartment says radiant floor heat. The answer is toasty feet in winter.
Toasty feet in winter, right. All right, and so what does that ultimately mean? Let's find a deeper benefit than that.
Comfort.
Comfort. Comfort, winter comfort. We want to be a little specific, not too specific since it has to cover the entire topic of the site. But you want to find, if it's a healthcare site, let's say, you give out healthcare tips. What does that mean? It means that your visitors will get information about how to take care of themselves better. And what does that ultimately mean? It means they'll live a more fulfilled, healthier life. So then you could have a tagline of healthcare tips for a healthier, more fulfilled life, or something to that effect. It's not clever. It just tells them exactly what it is and what it'll do for them. The reason for a tagline then is to transition the visitors into your site. So if you've written a good tagline, people will feel comfortable and they'll give you another 5 to 10 seconds. You have to, after they've given you that time, you have to get them emotionally invested in staying there. Now, I just want to, as an aside, most people here have blogs, so people aren't going to be coming in on your homepage, so you don't get to have that one permanent headline for all people. So this is a constant thing that you always have to be working on, is getting a good headline with features I'll show you later. People, when you're posting links on Twitter, you don't post a link to the homepage and say somewhere on this site is an article about this. When you do a Google search, you ask a specific question and it's going to come up on the page that answers that question. So your tagline has to match, be consistent with the rest of your site. If you have a tagline about healthcare, you're not going to have a headline right after that that says, this is why the KitchenMaid is my favorite toaster. I mean, people are just going to be confused. So you have to keep a consistent theme in your headline of every post, since it comes right under a tagline.
I have a question.
Yes?
Do you have like an order when you're trying to figure out what content to put on your website?
Okay.
Do you have like a priority order? Like, how do you figure out what should be in my tagline? What should be actually in the content? You know what I mean? It just seems like when I did our company website, there was just so much information, and I had trouble prioritizing what should be like a header, what should be a tag, do you have a process to that?
Think about what your site is supposed to accomplish. What's the biggest goal of your site? In your example, what was it?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Commercial real estate, property
So-
management. So our purpose is to provide service management to real
Service.
estate owners.
I have no idea what that really means.
We manage properties.
Okay.
Commercial, retail,
Basically,
There's your tagline.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
we manage property, so you don't have to.
Yeah. But you want to be asking yourself the question all the time, what do visitors here want? What am I providing and what do they want? And if there's a general theme of what they want, you want to figure out your tagline before you start. You can always change a tagline, and people do it all the time, but you want to have a theme of your site figured out. You don't, like I said, you don't want to be talking about toasters if you're in real estate. So your tagline should cover the biggest benefits of the site. Does that kind of answer the question? Or was there something about the content structure?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, do you pull out keywords after you answer your questions, or like, do you have?
Oh, you're talking for like SEO reasons?
No, just I don't know, to kind of guide readers through the site.
Well, we'll talk about button text and link text a little bit later, and I'll show you a couple examples of people that guide people through the site really well.
Okay.
So maybe we'll get back to that. All right, anyway, so the reason for a tagline is to get people with your headline. Maybe. Headlines are the gateway into your writing. If you ask any professional copywriter what the most important part of any piece of writing is, he's going to probably tell you it's the headline. If you've done your job with your headline, you'll give people a chance. Right now, they're kind of sitting on the fence. They like your tagline, but they're right there, and you just have to push them over the fence.
That's a good picture.
And that's why I included it. So, a good headline needs a powerful hook. And I have to credit this concept to John Carlton. He's one of the world's top copywriters. You can look him up sometime. It has to get your reader excited. If it's someone that's remotely interested in your subject, and remember, you're not writing for everyone in the world, you're writing for a very specific audience, a niche or whatever it is. Maybe it's just your friends and family, or maybe it's people that like funny rants and cute poems like Abby puts up. But it has to get them, if you write a headline, it has to grab them by the eyeballs. And the size doesn't matter. A lot of people tell you that you have to write short headlines on the web because people won't read a lot. And then some people tell you, oh, you want to jam as many benefits into the headline and forget how long it is. It doesn't really matter, and I'll show you a couple examples. Why some foods explode in your stomach. Everybody wants, I think this was selling a nutritional supplement or something like that. And if you're interested in your health and concerned about what you're eating, your digestive tract, you're not going to be able to walk away from this headline. It hooks you. Food is exploding in your stomach. What is that doing to your body? And now here's another one from John Carlton, actually, for golfers. Amazing secret discovered by one-legged golfer. Adds 50 yards to your drives, eliminates hooks and slices, and you slash up to 10 strokes from your game almost overnight. Now, if you think that headlines have to be short, this one sold millions of dollars worth of this golf video. Because it had a huge hook, a one-legged golfer that can drive the ball farther than you. And he justified this. There is actually a real one-legged golfer out there that has a secret swing that he teaches people on a video. But he does add 3 specific benefits of adding 50 yards, eliminating hooks and slices, and slashing 10 strokes from your game almost overnight. And notice it's 3 benefits and it does it quickly.
I'll give it for a second.
Sure. The next example I'll show you is the story approach to a headline. If you have a really good, powerful story that you can tell people that'll really get them, you want to use that. Ready? You killed that story or I'll run you out of the state. Now, I have no idea. I've seen this used as an example from other copywriters, and I still want to find this and read the article because I have no idea what it's about. But it catches me. If I'll run you out of the state, how could you turn the page without at least reading the next line and find out what that is? And that's what I mean by getting your readers fired up. They have to be so emotionally invested that they can't possibly go away without knowing at least what the next thing is. So there's a formula for writing headlines that a lot of people use. It's called the 4 U's. And that is urgent. It's something that the visitors have to know about right now. It's unique, either a unique angle or a unique concept. Basically, that other people aren't talking about this or this, they're not talking about it this way. It has to be useful, contain some kind of practical information, like how to hit a golf ball 50 yards. And it has to be ultra specific. Personally, I think this is cheating on the U, but it works. It has to tell people basically what it's going to talk about, what that article is going to, or blog post, or sales letter, or page is going to talk about. And you're not always going to be able to get all 4 of these in a headline. In fact, it's really, really hard to get all 4 in. But you want to go through and analyze your headline, if you can, and see if it matches that. And I'll give you a title of a blog post that I saw that was a really bad headline. Is that urgent? I don't think so. I don't really, there's no pressing reason why I have to find out that Twitter is cool. Is it unique? No. Everybody's saying Twitter's cool. Is it useful? I don't think I can use that. And it's not really specific. It doesn't tell you why it thinks it's cool. So I went and rewrote it, and this is completely fictional. Twitter saved my marriage. It got me promoted in 3 days. Now, is it urgent? Yeah, if you have a bad marriage and your job sucks, that's pretty urgent. It's creatively unique because it's not true. But if you have a story like this that you can tell, that you want to use a unique angle, it's useful if you have a bad marriage or you're losing your job or your job just sucks. Yes?
The one instance I might say that first headline is decent is if it's someone really famous who you never heard of using Twitter before. Like if it was Oprah.
Right, there's the
just
case.
Started on Twitter and all of a sudden that would grab my attention if it was written by someone I knew.
Right.
If it was just the headline out there in the middle of nowhere, then it wouldn't. But
Right, that's the difference. If you have authority with your readers. I'm talking, what I'm talking about right now is writing for first-time visitors. You always, always, always want to write for first-time visitors because that's going to be half of your audience. You know, you'll have repeat visitors a lot of times, and a good headline will get them interested. If you have a lot of authority, they'll read anything. If you've built up that reputation, they'll read anything you put out there. But how do you get to that point? How can you make sure that they're reading your content so that they'll trust you? You have to use these kinds of headlines. Lastly, it is specific. It points out exactly what I was going to talk about. Did you have a? Oh, okay. You don't want to be obnoxious or condescending with your headlines. Some people will be obnoxious and condescending because it gets them attention, but it gets you bad attention. That saying there's no such thing as bad publicity is just crap. If the only comments you're getting on your blog are people flaming you and telling you what a jerk you are, you're not building any kind of lasting relationship, and they'll eventually leave. But you do want to be out there. You want to have a clear opinion and you want to state it. Remembering that you want to be consistent with your tagline, you still want these to stand out, be bold. Don't be afraid to be unique. You know, everyone says that, don't be afraid to be unique, but everyone's out there trying to be just like everyone else, and you don't want to do it. Just some other types of headlines that you can use. Questions that if you ask a question in a headline, the only kind of question you should ask in a headline is one that can only be answered by reading the rest of the post. You don't want to ask a yes or no question, because if the answer is no, they're not going to read it. If it's yes, well, I already have that answered. But if does your blog make these mistakes? You have to read it to find out what the mistakes are. And if you're worried about your blog making mistakes, then it's a hook. An announcement is always good, but again, people like new, but in a lot of cases, if you don't have any authority with them, like she was talking about earlier, they're not going to care what your new widget is, although it can work really well in some cases. Just give a command, just tell them to do something, and they'll find out why. Use a testimonial. If you have someone that, you were, say it's a blog post and you were, save someone from drowning in a river, you could use a testimonial from that person. This works mostly in business. If you have a product or service you're selling, a customer testimonial in the headline works really well. Issue a challenge. It's almost the same thing. It's another way of saying the question that can only be answered by reading. Or show a seeming contradiction. Well, your wealth have you scorned by women. If you're a guy, it's an interesting contradiction. Now, subheads are very important on web pages. They break up the text. Let's see, I don't even remember what I put on this slide. People don't read online, they skim. If you sit down with a novel, you sit down and you relax and you read it. When you're sitting at your computer, you're leaning forward and you're clicking very fast. And when you're on a web page, typically you're skimming it to find the information you need. If you got the first cues right, the tagline, the headline, then people are going to skim down the page before they read it. If you catch them with a good, subhead, they're going to stop and read that block. But if they start getting bored again, they'll start skimming, and the only chance you have, if all you have is straight text all the way down, and nothing catches their eye, they're gone. So using subheads, especially on longer pages, anything over 500 words, actually over 400 words, I'll use at least one subhead in. Just because it breaks it up. Subconsciously, people don't want to work online. They want things to be easy, they want it to be done for them. If you have just straight blocks of text, it looks hard, it looks like work. And they're not thinking this, but they're out of there. I'll find somewhere easier, I'll find a video, I'll find whatever. Speaking of video, you do need good headlines on videos, or audios, or whatever. People don't come and just automatically click a video. Just because there's video there doesn't mean they're going to watch it. You have to give people a reason to watch the video or listen to the podcast or whatever it is. And you use those same headline techniques to get interest in the video. So it's the same thing for any kind of media online. You need a good headline to get people interested. Okay, I just got lost. Okay, people who don't read online, they skim. They keep, subheads keep the interest high. Well, I just talked about that. But when people skim, they need to be caught constantly. And it makes the pages look easier to read. Also, there's something in copywriting we call the dual readership path. Since we know that most people skim online, especially one of the parts of that I occasionally do for clients is I'll write one of those real long scrolling sales letters that everyone thinks no one reads but still make millions of dollars a year. Somebody's reading them. But there's something called a dual readership path, which means people will read your headline, and then if the only thing they read going all the way down the rest of the page is the subheads, they should have as close to the same story as the people that read every word. They should have almost the same impression. So your subheads need to be like the headlines, but they have to tell a story all the way down. Think of it as two separate stories almost, or two tellings of the same story. Does that make sense to everyone? Do we have any questions so far?
Fantastic.
Good. Either I'm that boring or I'm that interesting.
Yes.
Yes. Good answer. Here's just a good example. This is from ProBlogger.com. Notice how much easier it is to read with the broken up text.
White space.
He uses colors and pictures too. Yeah, someone said white space. That's a good point. You don't want to have your paragraphs jammed up against each other. It's the same reason for readability. And you don't want to have it on the width of the page. You don't usually want to go past 650 pixels wide. Yes, sir.
Vary the font
Vary the font.
when appropriate.
When appropriate. I do change. Usually I'll use Tahoma for the headlines and subheads, and I'll use Veranda. I forget.
Fernanda.
Yeah, someone said it. I don't know how to say it. I just click the one with the V for the body text. Anyway, here's if it comes up, here's a bad example. It's hard to read. It's on a gray background. Black text on gray is pretty hard to read. And then in the middle, he has that AdSense.
Oh.
Now, if you want someone to read that, you'll make 3 cents a click or 5 cents every time someone clicks on that. And then they'll be gone. And there's nothing to catch their attention down there. So you put this enormous gap with irrelevant material in between it, and they're just gone. That's a good way to lose people. When and how to write a subhead. You want to write a subhead wherever there's a shift or transition in your article. You kind of change ideas. You want a subhead there. And it's basically the same technique to write them as using a headline. And keep in mind the dual readership path, that they should kind of tell the same. If you have one subhead in a 600-word article, it's not going to tell the same story. But if you're anything longer than that, you're going to want to try that. Now we'll talk about button and text links. People ignore buttons and text. They think it's just not important. But it's if you can't think of each individual web page as a separate entity on your website, you have to think of it as in the broader scope. This page is connected to this page, which is then connected to that page. What path do you want your readers to take? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to subscribe to your RSS feed? Do you want them to comment on your blog? Do you want to make a sale or get a subscription? You have to keep people moving to do any of that stuff. And buttons and text links keep people moving through the site. Here's a good example of how it's done. This is from the American Cancer Society. And there's 3 things they want you to do. Either learn about cancer, join the fight, or find the American Cancer Society in your community. Notice the action verbs at the beginning of those sentences. Learn, join, find. And up here, learn more. They're keeping you moving. If you have an action verb like that at the beginning of a button text or text link, it keeps people moving. It tells them what to do. It just sinks in. It's kind of NLP, a neuro-linguistic program, if anyone knows that, hypnosis stuff. It's just goes below their radar, it just sinks in. And yes, if they're not objecting to where they are, then they'll just do what you tell them to. Let's see, do I have a bad example next? Yeah. Anyone work for Iron City here? I hope not. What does this look like to you? This is their homepage. It looks like a billboard. You see this up on the side of the street. Where are the buttons?
They're the bottles.
They are the bottles. But most people take a second to figure that out. You know, let me scroll over your bottles. What are you supposed to do here? When you get to this page, what do they want you to do? I don't know. There's nothing.
It should say something like try one, pick one, taste one.
There's nothing. There's no information here.
And they're not graphically glowing enough to really stand out. That might get people.
But no, even if they were, why would you click on it? What's the reason to click on it? You have to give people a reason to click.
Should say free beer.
If it said free beer, I'd be in. Yes, ma'am.
Perhaps they don't know what they want their website to be or do.
there
They
we
don't
go.
know the
Exactly.
purpose, they just have a website because they're supposed to have a website.
Exactly.
And so there's company information and there's,
It's a digital billboard.
yeah.
They just said, well, we better throw one of the, all the kids are doing it these days. So this is just an example. You have to have a purpose for your website. You have to have a reason to have people there, or there's no reason to tell them what to do next. You know, this just frustrates me. And then, well, you know what happened here is some designer or some company exec has a designer for a son that said, I will make this look so cool. It's going to look exactly like a real bar. And so he made it look like a real bar, and no one knows what to do. So their bounce rate has to be enormous on this page. I didn't click on any of the bottles. I saw they were links, but
Definitely know who did. I bet the same place that has all the billboards around town,
maybe.
they sold it.
Now this is a Math Games website.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do when you get here?
Read.
How? I mean, they have
Wow.
pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, puzzles, school books, other stuff. Same thing down the other side. Then links are off the bottom, links across the top, none of which any kid wants to click. They're not convincing you that this is going to be fun. That stupid little dog. You know,
Digs math. The
you
dog
want to
digs
have on any page, especially your home page, but on every page, you want to have at the end of the page or whatever, 3 options of what to do, 3 to 4 options. You know, play algebra games, take math lessons, practice math, or read the math dictionary. You know, tell them what to do and why they should do it. It's really that simple, and never have a site like this because it will just make me cry.
I don't think they probably didn't change that site since 1997.
I
Well,
doubt it.
there's
You know, the
no
other thing is really hard to
competition
find
for
sites.
that
The funny thing is, there's a ton of competition for this website.
Well, there's nothing that I found that had as much going on. I mean, obviously, I don't like the design or the layout.